Good morning. This is Melissa Feakin at FBS. Thank you for joining me today to learn about listing maintenance in the Flex MLS system. As with the other webinars, I just hit the record button. So this webinar will be produced and emailed out to all registrants about this time tomorrow. If you have questions for me about editing or adding a new listing into Flex MLS, Adam is also logged in and he will be answering those questions as I go through the information today. This webinar should be about 30 to 45 minutes if you're wondering how long this is going to take. And also please note that you will not have access to these functions until Monday, December 3rd. The indication that you have gone live with Flex MLS is when you see the ability to add and edit listings show up. And so we're going to cover it today so that you're prepared to start working with listing maintenance on Monday. You're currently in a read-only mode with both Matrix and Flex MLS, so you can search in both systems for listings, print listings, do searches, but you can't over the next 3 days do any listing maintenance. And that's because we're doing our final load of data so that when you go live on Monday, things like history will now be there. We'll be loading documents and just doing a final cleanup of the data now that the data is not moving around anymore. So one other thing that I have attached in the GoToWebinar panel is a PDF to getting logged in. I'm very hopeful that you've all already logged in. I'm not going to cover this today, but for some of you that might maybe just found out about this, maybe you hadn't been reading your email from main listings, there is a conversion happening. It's happening in 3 days, and this is how you're going to get logged into Flex MLS. Again, I'm not going to review that. I'm hopeful you've all already logged in, but I've attached that handout if you still need it. All right, so I have logged into Flex MLS. This webinar is on listing maintenance, so it has to do with your listings. A quick reminder about the dashboard. There is a section of the dashboard called My Listings. If you're following my nice large mouse, hopefully you'll see where I am circling the My Listings gadget. And this is just a reminder that each gadget in the upper right corner has these 3 vertical dots. And one of the things that most of the gadgets have is an option to go into your settings. The reason I wanted to point this out today is just to remind those of you that are office administrators, you don't have to delete this gadget. You might think at first, this isn't useful to me. I don't have any listings. I maintain the listings of my office. Well, I want to point out that you can change this from showing your listings to your office listings. And then once you do that, and then click Save, the gadget changes, and now you're going to see a count of my office's listings. There are 4, and my office had 3 sold listings, and I have my sold listings settings. Let's go back into there. We're looking back over 90 days. This is customizable. You could go back 120 days and forecast out 21 days for expiring listings. So keep in mind those settings are available. So now, instead of this pointing at your listings, which you might not have as the office admin, you can change this to the office listings. Under Menu, so in the upper left corner, under the Flex MLS logo, I have my mouse over Menu, and when I click on that, you won't see this today, but come Monday, there will be an Add Change section to your menu if you have listing maintenance capability. And what I mean by that is if you're an appraiser, 1, I don't know why you're attending this webinar, but 2, as an appraiser, you would not have a listing maintenance setting to turn on, so you won't see this section of the menu. But for those of you that can add and edit your listings or your office's listings in Matrix, you're going to have this option come Monday. And you're going to see things like add a new listing, change a current listing, get into my incomplete listings, see any listings of mine that are unmapped, and you can also copy listings. If these are actions that you do frequently, remember, you can star those items so that they show up here on your favorites bar. So again, anything with the yellow star next to it has become a favorite. I favorite the things that I use most frequently in FlexMLS, and then they appear up on my favorites bar. If you want to add the listings frequently and you actually want that over to the left of your screen, if you travel over to the right of the screen, there is an option here where it says reorder. So again, I'm in the upper right corner of the screen, slowly circling the word reorder. If I click on that, I can then go down and move add listing to the top, which then will move it to the left of my favorites bar. I might want my change listing option next to add listing. So I'm going to move that up also. Let's do this. And then I'm going to click save in the lower right corner. Now if you look at my favorites bar, follow my mouse to the more upper left corner of the screen, you'll see it says quick search. I do that the most. And then probably the things I do most is add and change listings. So let's go ahead and talk about adding listings. So I'm going to click add listing and it will take you into our listing screen. Our add listing screen is split up into tabs. You'll enter the address on the address tab. You'll enter features on the detail tab. You'll enter room information on the room tab. The first thing that we're asking you to select is your property type. And with the setup, we have residential, land, multifamily, commercial, commercial info exchange, and personal property. And for today's example, I'm going to do residential. Now, I currently have myself set up as a listing agent. I can't edit any listings in my office. The only thing I can do is maintain my own listings. And so my name is automatically listed as the listing agent. And then if I were co-listing with somebody, I could search for their name. Let me make one change here. I'm doing that on another screen. If you are the office admin, if you maintain all the listings in your office, when you click add listing and you pick your property type, now notice that listing member's not filled in because as the office administrator, you can choose from the roster of your office. So you can come here and if you enter 3 or more letters, you can then select the person that you're adding the listing for. So that's the difference between a realtor who can only maintain their own listings. They'll automatically be entered as the listing agent, or the office admin where they'd search for the person they're adding the listing for. Your eyes may have already followed down to where it says parent-child options, and I think it's easiest to explain this with land. This is a setting that Main Listings chose to turn on, and using land as my example, let's say that I had 10 acres of land I was selling, and my seller was willing to sell it in one big 10-acre chunk, or they were willing to parcel it off and sell it in 1-acre pieces. So I'm going to enter this land multiple times. I'm going to first enter the 10-acre chunk as the parent. I'd go through and enter all the information and I'd activate the listing. I'd then come back in and say, now I'm going to enter each individual child, meaning the 1-acre pieces, as a child of the parent list number. That way, if you sell the parent, all the children listings, those 10 listings, would automatically cancel, terminate. Or if I were to sell all the children, I sold off all the 1-acre pieces, listings, then the parent would automatically cancel, terminate. So when you see this parent-child option, that is what it's talking about. If you need to use it, you always enter the parent first so that you can then come back in and say this is a child listing for the parent MLS number XYZ. Let's go back to residential and move on to address. Now before I start talking about the address tab, a bubble just popped up as I was talking about parent-child listings, and that bubble said auto-saving. Every 2 minutes as you add your listing, FlexMLS automatically saves your work. So if you were to accidentally close your browser you were to have internet failure, you wouldn't have to start over with adding your listing. Once you got logged back into FlexMLS, if you click Menu, you're going to find your listing sitting under My Incomplete. Now, the next question you might have is, how long do those incomplete listings sit there? You might want to write this down. Incomplete listings sit there forever. Yep, that's right. They sit there forever until you delete your incomplete listing or you finish adding it. Then it goes away because you've either deleted it or you've activated the listing. So again, incomplete listings sit there forever, and we help you out as you add your listing. It shows you right here when the last time an autosave happened, so that if you have internet failure, you don't have to start over. If you are looking at the address tab, you're seeing that some of the fields are in a red-pink color, or if you can't see red-pink, they're bracketed. The red fields, or the bracketed fields, are the fields that we have been asked to make required. So we have a property type of residential, and then within residential, you need to select if it's single family, condo, or manufactured home. It's a subtype. For my example, I'm doing single family residence. Now I could continue adding the rest of, there's that autosave again. I could continue adding the rest of the address information and the tax ID, or there's a shortcut if you know the tax ID and county. If I know the county, and it happens to be York, so I don't have to scroll through this list. I can just start typing York until I see it. So my selection process goes like this: scroll through the list or just start typing what you want. Once you select your county, the town option opens. So you are only able to select towns within the county you selected. But I'm not actually going to enter the town because I know the tax ID. So I quickly typed that in, and then I'm going to click Populate Tax Data. This goes over to Realist. It looks for the county and the tax ID, and then it populates information if it can find a match. And it did. You're now seeing that 80 Israel Head Road populated, along with the zip code for this listing. Now, do you need to use the Populate Tax Data button? Nope, you don't have to, but it's an option if you know the tax ID and you want to populate some data from the tax records into your listing. Now that I have the address entered, I'm going to go ahead and move on to main fields. So you'll see next to address, that's the tab that's white, that's the tab I have selected. I'm going to move on to main fields, but look what happens. Before I move on, we want you to geocode or map your listing. And so a map suggestion appears. Is it correct? Well, I see that it is along Israel Head Road. And if I scroll in a little bit, I get more parcel information. And you'll see the red push pin, I'm going to move it a little bit so you can see it, is sitting right on top of 80. So it is accurate. If you prefer, in the upper right corner of the Locate Property map, do you see here, I'm moving off and on it so it kind of blinks. There's a button for satellite imagery. If you prefer, you can switch to satellite imagery, zoom in and say, yes, that is my listing. If not, maybe it's this listing right here. What I'm going to do is click and drag the map underneath the red push pin, and with that I can accurately map the listing. So I've shifted the map over if for whatever reason it had been mapped inaccurately. Now it hadn't. I'm actually going to move this back to 80 Israel Head Road, but if it didn't bring up the map accurately, please know that you can map it yourself. Once you have the red push pin in the place you want it, then go ahead and click Use this location. Next, we're on the Main Fields tab. There is conditional programming here, and the first field that's required, again, it's pink or red, and if you don't see that, the bracketed fields are required. If we go over to the right, watch what happens with book, page, map, leased land. This happens not to be leased land, so I'm going to say no. And when I say no, book, page, map, lot, all become required. So I'll come in here and enter that information. Scrolling down a bit further, and please note, I'm not actually adding this listing, so I'm going to skip over some fields. Neighborhood association, it has a constraint or restriction on the field. You can only enter letters or numbers. You can't enter dashes or question marks or other characters in that field. There's some additional programming here. Association. Perhaps this listing is in an association. When you select yes, see how entrance fee is currently the next unrequired field? If I select yes for association, 2 additional fields pop in. They were hiding, but I said yes to association, so then I have to put in my association fee and how often that happens. Scrolling down further, taxes and tax year populated from Realist. But I'll let you know, because this is a common question, can you override the data? Yes, if this is inaccurate, you can override the data that was populated from Realist. Let's talk about list and expiration date. Again, there's some constraints on these fields. The list date can be a maximum of 4 days, can be a maximum of 5 days before the current date. You can either type your list date in, and you don't have to put in the punctuation, by the way. Notice when I tab away from the field, it then punctuates it for me. Or if you prefer to click on the calendar symbol, you can look up your dates this way. Price, that's important, but again, we don't have to put in punctuation. Our listing reports, FlexMLS will put in the $ and commas as needed. Scrolling down further, again, things that aren't red or bracketed aren't required, but if you know the answer, why not fill it in? Number of bedrooms, that data must have been in tax records. It populated for me. We'll say this has 10 rooms, it has 1 fireplace. The basement has 0 bathrooms. The main level has 1 full bath and 1 half. You get the idea. What we'll then do based off of the bathroom information is calculate total baths for you. So there's not a total bath field on input. That's done behind the scenes once you activate your listing. Year built, again, another field that populated from the tax records. Finished above grade square feet, this is 2,700, and below grade is 800. And my square foot source, we'll say it's from the builder. Garage, no, it doesn't have a garage. If it did, then garage spaces becomes required. Again, that's that conditional programming we've added in. Source of acreage, so our lot acres, I'll say it's 1.22, and our source is appraiser. Road frontage, no. If I had said yes, then we have to fill in road frontage amount and our source of where we're getting that information. We have our commission fields. Once I fill in a commission field, then the other ones become unrequired. So you only have to fill in 1 with your requirements. You can fill them all in if you'd like, but with, again, that conditional programming, and main listings is just asking for 1 of these to be filled in. Let's talk about remarks. We have set your directions field. It looks like we were asked to set that at 255 characters. The home is located. As you type, we let you know how many characters you've used out of the maximum. Your remarks, it has 1,000 characters. So again, as you're typing, we let you know how you're doing, and also the browsers are very kind to red underline your misspells. You have internal remarks, showing remarks, mortgage remarks, lots of remarks, and finally advertising remarks. Each time you click in there, it lets you know the total character count for that field. Details or features, anything where you says you need to select between 1 and so many items, or you see the red, you must fill in something that is required. If there is multiple items, maybe this is on a cul-de-sac and it's a rolling sloped. The location is in town and it's an interior lot. There is going to be sections here that also have some additional programming. Maybe this is on water frontage. Once I select yes, then additional fields here become required. Source of waterfront is also required, and water body type. Now, there are going to be fields that aren't required, but if you know your listing has an electric range and a microwave and a dishwasher, I'd highly recommend you select those options so that when someone searches for a home with those options, your listing might come up in their search match. Now, if you do say there's something else, we will require you to say what that something else is. Extra fridge in basement. Scrolling down further, you can say what the kitchen countertops is. I always like to know. Sometimes the pictures don't tell me, so it's nice to fill that in. What's the style of home that is required? And then so on and so forth. Continue going down, filling in the information. And I'll just scroll a bit more so that you can see what some of those detail fields are. Our next tab is filling in room information. Very basic screen. It asks you to then add a room, and this box opens. So the room I want to first add is my kitchen. If you want, you can say what the dimensions are. My kitchen is 13 by 14, and it is on the first level. And does your kitchen have any unique room features you'd like to mention? If so, there's a drop-down list. You can either scroll through the list, or you can start typing in the box what your room has. We can then click to add another room. This time I'm adding the den. It is on the second level, and it has a fireplace, and it is gas. Now, if I want, I can collapse the room entry once I'm done. See the little arrow in the upper right corner? If I click on that arrow, I can collapse my rooms into a more compact list. I can continue to add additional rooms. But once they're entered, if I want to collapse them, I can click the arrow and see a condensed list, or you can click to open up to edit one of your rooms. So that is how you enter room information. What is broker distribution? That is our terminology for syndicating your listing. By default, we assume you're going to kick this listing out to IDX, to RETS feeds, should this listing be on the internet. If your seller has signed paperwork excluding the listing from the internet, see how we're syndicating by default to Zillow, RPR, Realtor.com, and this is all per your brokerage. It's up to your broker to set these settings come Monday. But if you have paperwork signed and they don't want the listing on the internet, once you check the top box, everything else becomes unselected because it's not going to be syndicated via RETS. If I uncheck this box, though, another option I might say is I want it to be syndicated, but I don't want the address to display. So again, perhaps your seller has signed a form saying, please don't disclose my address. You can check that box. If your broker allows you access to these distribution options, you can then say, if allowed, hey, you know what? I don't want my listing on Zillow. So if allowed, you can stop your listing from syndicating to these 4 additional options. Now, if you did have all the required information entered, travel with me to the upper right corner of the screen where we can click to add the listing. You can also, from here, click to save your listing as incomplete. So every couple of minutes we're saving your work, but if you just want to be done and come back and finish this later, you can click to save it as incomplete. Let me undo my selection here. It was just yelling because I'd selected a child listing. So I'm going to save it as incomplete, and now I could go home, but also I want to show you on an incomplete listing, we can add our photos add our documents, videos, or virtual tours before activating. I highly recommend that you add your media before you activate your listing. That way, these listings, as soon as you activate them, if they match search results, these listings will immediately, as soon as you activate it, appear in clients' portals. They'll soon also be sent out via subscription email if they match search criteria. And I just always want my media to already be on the listing before I activate it. So if somebody looks at my listing, 30 seconds after I activate it, they can see all the photos right away. So let's talk about adding photos. Under media, it's the first option. I'm going to click photos. And we're going to talk about how many photos, what size of photos. And of course, there's no photos yet. So travel with me to the upper right corner of your screen where it says in the blue button, Add Photos. So here in the upper right. So your MLS has it set so you can add as many photos as you want. So if you want to upload 100 photos, go ahead. Each photo can be up to 15 megabytes or a 3000 by 2000 resolution. If you'd like, also here, you can highlight the photos and hold down your Control or Command key and select to upload multiple photos at once. In the folder on my computer, you'll see that my bedroom was saved as a photo, wall panel, something. My kitchen was named Luxury Kitchen, and then the front of my home has a number on it. The reason I'm showing you this is when I click to open these photos, that photo description is then put on the photo as its description. Also, please note that in the order I clicked the photos in the folder, that's how it ordered them here. Well, I don't want my photo to be called 58203. I want this to be called Front Yard. And I want this to be called Kitchen. So if you don't want to relabel the descriptions once they're uploaded, when you're saving them on your computer, keep in mind the file names prior to uploading them to your computer. So each photo has a description that is required. You have to have a description for each photo. But underneath each photo, you'll see a box here, and this gives us 1,000 characters, and it's called a caption. I love using the caption on the kitchen. I might say granite counters, alder. Look at that, I can't spell. Alder cabinets. Floors are vinyl. So you have 1,000 characters there to describe to anyone looking at this what's going on in that photo. Now, if you did get these uploaded and you're like, ooh, I don't like the order, you can rearrange the order a couple different ways. I can grab the top of a photo and move it to a different position, so you can move them around. Or you can reorder the photos in the drop-down and do it that way. Even if the primary photo moves over here to the third position, move it that way, it's still the primary photo, but it's now in the second position. If you want a different photo to be the primary, then you mark the flag, set as primary. If you have to turn your head sideways to see the photo, you can rotate the photo right within here. And again, if you say, whoo, wrong photos, wrong listing, whoopsie, I can select all, and then that allows me to delete all photos and then re-upload new ones. Now, you might have said, what did she say about photo sizes? Remember, in the upper right corner, there's context-based help. If I click help and click help with this page, it tells you, again, there's a reminder, per photo, the maximum file size is 15 megabytes or a 3000 by 2000 resolution, and FlexMLS supports JPEG, GIF, PNG, etc. All those different types of images are supported. So again, in the upper right corner, help with this page. It will remind you the maximum photo size per photo. So I'm going to return to editing my listing. Please note that I'm not hitting the back button in my browser. I'm hitting return to edit your listing. And let's talk about documents. Now documents can be up to 10 megabytes. Again, you might say what? Under help with this page, it tells you about the document sizes here. So you have that handy feature with you all the time. So in a month, if you can't remember max photo size, max document size, under help, we tell you that information. To upload a document, click choose file. What do I got here? I'll just add a picture here, that's fine. Maybe I'm uploading a PDF and I click the drop down here. You have document names. The first set are all your public access and then member only private documents. I might be uploading a deed. When I click to add, it will upload the document. In this case, I picked a picture, and then I can click to add more. So can you add multiple documents? Yes. How big can that document be? 10 megabytes. And the drop down here gives you the document names. Returning to my edit listing screen, you can also attach videos or virtual tours or both. Now FlexMLS does not host these items. They need to be hosted elsewhere. If you are attaching a video, click videos, click add video, and then down below you can choose to upload a branded video or an unbranded video. And you'd copy and paste the HTML code in. You can give your photo or your video a name. Cool video I made. So it can have a name just like a photo. It also can have a caption. And you have these spaces for both branded, unbranded. I'm not going to upload a video. I don't have one. I'm going to return to edit listing and show you here where we have virtual tours. Again, click add virtual tour. There are links here. And then you can mark whether it's a branded or unbranded, and you can give your virtual tour a name. So if I had gone home for the day and I wanted to finish my listing, remember when you go to a menu, there's an option for my incomplete. Now, if I were in the same room with you, I would test you and I would say, how long is that incomplete listing going to sit there? Some of you might be shouting, forever. Yes, it will sit there forever until you come here and finish adding it or delete it. So here is my incomplete listing. I have added it many times because I've been testing this. But notice over to the right it says property address, price, and then when you last edited it. Now here's a cool feature. In FlexMLS, the input forms are right within the system. So if Main Listings decides to add new fields, it automatically updates the input forms. So if you started entering this listing prior to getting everything from your seller, you could enter it, save it as incomplete, and then click down here where it says print or email. And I love this feature, print input form. So again, I did that quick, sorry. See where it says print input form? If we go to the next tab, here's your input form, and everything I've already input is here. And I can print this already filled in and take it to my seller to get the additional information I need. Note that anything that is bold and underlined is a required field, and anything with an asterisk is a field that has a drop-down list. So the input forms follow input. They are in the same exact order as input, except a few of the larger text fields might be out of order. But as we scroll down, you'll see that your text fields, there's my lovely remarks I typed in earlier, are all here. And then your features are down here. And guess what? The features I've already selected, cul-de-sac, rolling sloped, are already checked because it pops up and fills in the input form for you. So again, under my incomplete listings, there is the option to click to print or email, and you can print that input form partially entered, take it to your seller, get that additional information, and then activate the listing. As you can tell, I love that feature. I just wanted to point that out. All right, So let's get it activated. So to activate the listing, we would come here, we would select it, and then we would click Edit. I would go back into listing information, and then I would come here, finish filling in the fields, and then activate the listing. Do you want to see another really cool feature? In the upper right corner, it says Show All Fields. So follow my mouse, upper right corner, Show All Fields. When I click All Fields, I can change that to Empty Required Fields Only. Pretty cool, right? So watch what happens. The list shrinks, and it only shows me what I have left to fill in. Love that feature too. So finish filling this in, and then I would click Add Listing, and that's when it would assign the MLS number. So MLS numbers in FlexMLS are not assigned until the listing is activated. So your incomplete listings won't have MLS numbers. They will be assigned once you add the listing. Now I'm not going to click Add Listing because I don't want to put a fake listing in your database. But if I had clicked to add the listing, this is the screen that the system would have brought me to. It is the Edit Listing screen. If in the future I need to go in and add additional features, change rooms, I would click Listing Information. If the office administrator added your listing for you, but mapped it incorrectly, you as the listing agent could click Map Location, and you could grab the map and say, oh, I don't think they knew where this went. Now this is a dummy listing, so keep in mind it has a fake address. But I could, move the map around again, access satellite imagery. And another cool feature is once your listing's activated, you can even put your overlays on the map. So I could see school districts or zip codes. But anyway, once I have the map set, I'd click Use this location. What else can we do on the Edit Listing screen? We can access Supra. We can change the status. Let's talk about status changes because there's going to be a terminology change with statuses moving from Matrix to FlexMLS. If I wanted to add or remove a contingency, I would click Add Remove Active Kickout pending Continue to Show. In Matrix, these were separate fields. In FlexMLS, these are going to be a status. And so you can click Add Remove Active Kickout. My listing does not have a contingency. If I wanted to put it set to pending Continue to Show, it then would ask me for the pending date, and I would click Save. It's telling me I've gathered all required information, and now I'm in a pending Continue to Show status. Once that listing is ready to go fully under contract, I can click Penned Listing here and enter the selling agent and the pending date. Now in FlexMLS, it's not sold, it's closed listing. So this would be for leasing the listing, renting the listing, selling the listing. We close the listing out of FlexMLS. There's a bit of information you do have to enter here. When it is closing, when is the sold date? Closing price. Did seller pay closing costs? If yes, then another field appears where you have to enter your seller contributions. Did acres change at sale? Yes. Well, then you have to let us know what the lot size acres now are. There's a field for buyer zip code, sold terms, and then once you have appraiser information entered, so if I go and find my appraiser, is there a Greg? There's a Gretchen. These are, I'll find an appraiser later, but I could enter my appraiser. I would fill in their name and phone number, and then a few more fields before I'd click Save. So when you close out the listing, there's a few fields, quite a few fields that they're asking. Now let's talk about a few more terminology changes. In FlexMLS, when you withdraw the listing, you are temporarily taking it off the market. It's assumed you're going to put it back on market. Maybe the seller wants to paint a room or they've gone on vacation and they want the listing temporarily taken off the market. You would withdraw it. A withdrawn listing will expire if in a withdrawn state and the expiration date is reached. So let me say that again. A withdrawn listing will expire if it is withdrawn and the expiration date comes along. To cancel a listing is final. I believe this is terminated in Matrix. We're now going to use cancel. So if the seller and you part ways, the expiration date has not been reached, but you need to terminate the listing. Remember, in FlexMLS, that will be canceling the listing. You'll click here and it will ask for that terminated or cancellation date. What else can we do on this page? Well, we can change the price. We can add more photos or documents, video tours or videos. We can also schedule marketing activities. In FlexMLS, if you click to schedule an open house, that's a public event. Sunday from 3 to 5. Please come to my house. I have it in the newspaper. I want all people to come see. Whereas a tour of homes is an agent caravan or an agent tour or whatever it is you might call them. A tour of homes event is private to members of the MLS. It's not a public open house. It's a private event to MLS members only. And then you can click here to get into showing time for this listing. Again, all these third parties will be accessible next week along with these listing maintenance functions. So that is a little bit, well, it's a lot about adding and editing listings. Now, I went directly from activating listing to this edit listing screen. But what if I want to edit a listing later on? There are so many different ways that you can get to editing a listing. One, you can use the gadget. You can click My Active Listings, go to search results where you see your active listings, and then next to the MLS number, do you see the little triangle? That little triangle says additional actions, and that includes editing the listing. Now, if you click on this today, this won't be available. Remember, this will become available on Monday. But it allows me to get into editing my listing, showing time, reporting an error or violation on someone else's listing. It also gets me into listing activity, which will show me number of clicks on my listing, number of emails, number of views in the portal. But if I click Edit Listing, it's going to take us right back into the page we were just on. How else can you get in to edit your listing? Well, up on my menu or in your favorites, I have added Change Listing. So I can click Change Listing, and here are my listings, and I can then click the MLS number and get into Edit It. How else can you get into your listings? Well, we can go to Menu, and under Menu, if we go to the Search section, there's a section for My Listings and My Office Listings. When I click My Listings, it takes me to search results. Let me do it with my office listings. It takes me to search results. And there's the listings. When I click here, I can then get in and edit the listing. So many ways that you can get in to edit a listing once it's been activated. I also mentioned way back at the beginning, under the Add Change menu, there's an option for copying. You can duplicate a listing. You'd click here, enter the MLS number of the listing you want to copy, and then click Next. Now, you'll still have to fill in some information, but the majority of the information will already be filled in for you. So that is a function if needed. Finally, let's talk about FlexMLS Pro, or our mobile site. Now, I'm hopeful you were able to attend Josh's webinar yesterday on FlexMLS Pro. If not, there is a webinar recorded and available to you if you'd like to catch up on all things FlexMLS Pro. The one thing I'm going to mention with our app, FlexMLS Pro, is you can edit your listings from the app. I've already installed the app. I'm on an iPad. It's available. The app is available on iOS or Android, or you can go to m.flexmls.com. So let's just pop that up. So if you have a Windows phone, there's not going to be an app for your Windows phone, but on the browser of your phone, you can go to m.flexmls.com and be brought to a mobile website that looks very much or is the same as the Android app. So the app is right here. It's this icon here. It looks like a circle with a little point as a house. And when you tap on that, you'll need to log in, and you'll use your same login credentials that you use to get into FlexMLS Web. Here you'll see that you can search. My menu on iOS is at the bottom, where on Android it is here at the top. But what you'll want to do, and I'll show you this on both. Let me put these side by side. Make sure my recording is catching both of these. All right. So on Android, if you click your initials, you can get into My Listings. Now, I'm not logged in there, so I don't have any listings, but they'd show here if I did under that account. And under the iOS app, if you click the More button in the lower right corner, you'll see in the middle of the page it says My Listings. Now, today, if you go in and look at your listings, oh, what do I got going on here? Let me go fix my listing. 1 second. Oh, hopefully this will pop up. Let me make one change here. Let me try and refresh this. Otherwise, I'll just verbally explain it to you. There, that'll work. Okay, so when looking at your listings, there's a one-line view. But if you click to go into a full view, come Monday, you won't see it today, but come Monday in the upper right corner, you're going to have an edit button. So if you can edit the listing, you'll be able to edit it on FlexMLS Pro and mobile. And when we tap edit, the edit listing screen comes up. And the options available currently for editing on your listing in FlexMLS Pro include those status changes. Just like I showed you when we were in FlexMLS Web, if we click to pen the listing from FlexMLS Pro, those same fields will appear that need to be filled in here. We'll close out of there. Whoops, too far. We can change to canceled, withdrawn, closed. Any of those status changes are available. From FlexMLS Pro, we can also click to change the price. So the price changes can be done from here. And photos. That's cool. And when you click to add photos, it says this particular listing I'm using as an example has no photos. So I'll click the same add photos button that we saw in FlexMLS Web. And here's something really cool. Take photo. So I could be in the home, I could be out on the land, wherever it might be, and I could take a photo with my device and upload it, or I could find the photo in the photo library. So those are the options available. The photos follow the same guidelines here as they do in FlexMLS Web, up to 15 megabytes or a 3000 by 2000 resolution. Now I will back up if you missed on how to install FlexMLS Pro. That's going to be here in the App Store. On your phone, just search the App Store. Now, if you're on a tablet, so if you're on an iPad, and you go into the App Store and you want to search for FlexMLS Pro, something's going to happen here. And what's going to happen is FlexMLS iPads, we don't have our own, default to iPad only apps. So when I search for FlexMLS, it's not going to come up. But in the upper right corner, if I click Filters, you'll see it says Supports iPad Only. Well, I can switch that to iPhone only, and then you'll see the FlexMLS Pro app right here. We also on iOS have a FlexMLS app for consumers. Basically what it is taking the portal and putting it into an app for your consumers to use. But you can click then to install FlexMLS Pro. And that's just one caveat with the iPad. If you search for it, make sure you go to the Filters button in the upper right corner and make sure it says Supports iPhone Only. So that is going to conclude, I went a little long, my apologies, our webinar for today. Just to recap a little bit about what we talked about, listing maintenance, adding and changing listings will become available to you on Monday, December 3rd. This will be your indication that we have gone live with FlexMLS. If you need to make any listing changes between now and then, well, you can't, because both Matrix and FlexMLS are in a read-only mode. Both systems are accessible this weekend. You just won't be able to do a listing maintenance until Monday. Remember that incomplete listings will sit there forever until you finish adding them or you remove them, and you can copy listings from here if you need to copy a listing that has been on the MLS before. One more thing, FlexMLS Pro, we pop that back up. It does allow, come Monday, for editing listings, and you're going to find that on the More section of the iOS app. And on mobile and Android, you're going to find it under your initials in the upper right corner where you'll be able to get to your listings. I want to thank you again for attending this webinar. Adam and myself will stay on for a little bit longer and continue to answer any additional questions that you have. Otherwise, I hope you have a great weekend. Bye-bye.